Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with John Leuck, descendant of Kenosha County pioneer families. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So, how many branches of your family have moved to Kenosha, and when did they come?
Well, all my great-grandparents lived in Kenosha. Two pairs of great-grandparents and one pair of great-great-great. And the oldest ones would be the Myers, Theodore and Susanna Meyer. They had their farm just west of I-94 there on the south side of 60th Street, where they're going to apparently build a casino. Okay, and they came about 1844. And then the Mungan family, they were on the other side of I-94, just east of what they call the ditch there. And that was the ones that leads into the rivers and so forth.
The Kilbourne Ditch?
Kilbourne Ditch, exactly.
Oh, okay. All right, and what did they do when they came here?
They started farming right away, apparently.
And where did they emigrate from?
The Myers came from Trier, Germany area, and the Mungans pretty much did too.
Okay. And what type of farming were they engaged in?
I would imagine mostly crops for them. I'm not sure because they go way back, but and maybe a little bit of animal husbandry, I imagine. Most of my relatives did some of that also, cows and pigs and chickens and so forth.
Okay. And did they come directly to Kenosha County from Germany?
That I'm not sure. Most likely they would come to Chicago first.
But that's just a transportation line. I mean, did they actually settle someplace and then move here? Or
I think they came here first.
Okay. Okay. And what about the next families of your tree?
Well, then there's the Thielens. Leonard and Lucy Thielen came here in 1852. They had a 170-acre farm on the south side of Lichter Road, pretty much between Highway 31 and 39th Avenue.
And that would be 18th Street?
Exactly.
Highway L?
Right, and their house is still there. It's an old Italianate 1865 home in Cream City brick. And you can see it on a higher hill there, but it's kind of surrounded by suburbs now.
Okay. And was there another family who came?
Well, the Lichters did.
Okay.
Now, the Thielens came from basically the east side, or the west side of Germany.
Okay.
The Lichters came from, well, there's two of them. Okay, one came, Mr. Lichter, Peter Lichter, came from Bitburg, Germany. And Bitburg's kind of known for being a halfway stop on some of the Romans and so forth, as was Trier. And my great-grandmother, Barbara, whose name was Barbara Lotz, her father was a brewer in Germany. And so when he came here, he started working with Pabst and started the Pabst Brewery with them as a brewer, not as a person with money.
Okay. And how about the Leuck family?
The Leucks came from Orscholz, Germany. That's south of Trier. My great-grandmother came, well, actually she was born in Blue Island, Illinois. And her parents came from Luxembourg. Her name was Balschelt. And there's a lot of Balschelts in Kenosha who are relatives that way too. And he started working at the Bain Wagon Works. And when they closed up, he started working at Simmons. And my grandfather, who was born there on 50th Street, it was 1104 50th Street, which is no longer there. He started working at Bain and then Simmons, and then from there he went to where he had to go. Nice thing is all my ancestry is either factory workers or farmers. It makes for a very good way of, getting to work, good work ethic.
And where did they go to school? Where did their children go to school?
Well, most of them went to St. George, actually.
Which is now today?
St. Elizabeth campus,
Okay.
which no longer has a school. Now, St. George itself has interesting history. They started out kind of in the basement of St. Mark's, which is was now St. James. That was the old Irish parish. Then they had to have, of course, a German parish. A lot of Germans were moving in. Germans moved on the north side of the creek, of Pike Creek. So they call it Pike Creek. The
Pike Creek is now underground.
underground, unfortunately. Wish they had kept it that way it was. But yeah, they called it the Rhine River because all the Germans were on one side of it. And they also had a Lutheran German church, which eventually became the one that's off on 3rd, 19th there.
That's Frieden's.
Frieden's, exactly. And what happened was a lot of the Germans, whether they went to Frieden's or to St. George, they'd help each other out because they're coming from a common place. They knew the language, they helped them get jobs and so forth. So it's kind of cool. The church actually started in 1851.
St. George?
St. George.
Okay.
It burned down in 1875 and they made it go again and they finished up in 1882.
All right, so you say that the Germans, both from the Lutheran Church and the Catholic Church, helped each other out.
Exactly.
Was there an organized club or group, or were they we just know each other?
Well, there was Germania Hall, which used to be a brewery there where Marina Gardens is now. And then there was Germania Hall, then became Polonia Hall, which you might remember. And then it became Henry's Hamburgers. And, that's part of our North Side tour.
Okay, and you said that these families helped each other out. What were the kinds of things they would help each other out with?
Well, helping to educate the kids, learning English, helping them to get jobs, things of that sort. And there was back and forth like that because they came from a common area, although normally the Germans who were Protestant came from the north and Catholics came from the south, but there's light intermixing.
Okay. And with the church and the helping each other out, was there some kind of club that was involved with St. George at the time?
Well, yeah, there's a few clubs. Of course, there was the Catholic Knights of Columbus. There was a special club, the Roxy Club, that was on 47th. That was a 3-story building. And that was a private club by the north side Germans who are Catholic.
Okay, and what made all of these different family members emigrate individually without knowing about the others, or did one come and tell the second one to come? How did that family relationship bring all of those families here?
Well, I know the Thielens, Leonard Thielen came with his family. His father had died in Germany, he's buried there, Christopher Thielen. His mother came with him, Maria Eva. She's buried in Racine, in Holy Cross Cemetery. That's another of my great-great-great-grandmothers. And they came from there. The Lictors, I think, maybe came with other people. I know my great-grandfather, Leuck, had at least one brother in Madison. I'm not sure if they came together or not.
Okay, so did the Meyers know the Mungans? Did the Mungans know the Thielens? Did the Thielens know the Leucks? Was there any connection to any of those before they got here?
I would say probably the Meyers and Mungans are very close as far as where they came from. Probably the rest of them kind of knew each other. In Europe, of course, you don't have to go too far to find somebody else.
And do you know what prompted them to come at the different times that they arrived?
Well, there was a problem with wars. Wanted to maybe escape a draft or something like that. There was probably some problem with food, maybe oppression of some sort, labor, usual things, I guess. I'm going to read into that a little bit more. I have a book on that. So.
And they settled here in particular, maybe because why?
It's about the same level as far as latitude. So it'll be the same kind of weather for crops, and most of them were farmers. And so that would, and of course, there's a lot of good factories here to work at. Simmons and Bain Wagon and the other ones.
Okay, and you mentioned what some of the Leuck ancestors did for a living. What about the Lichters?
Lichters are pretty much all farmers. You go to a plat map of 1887, and you see two Thielens. You see Leonard Thielen and his son Peter Thielen, who's my great-grandfather. And you see that there's also a Lichter plot there, a big one, exactly where Talent Hall is now on the Parkside campus, on both sides of the road on 30th Avenue there, which is kind of cool. And so I found that out, in my research, and that's cool. He actually had a farm there. Eventually, then, if you go to the 1924 plat map, you'll see 5 farms of kids of Peter Lichter. And that would be George Lichter, who had a farm on Lichter Road, okay, between the 2 tracks, basically, on the south side. The farmhouse is still there. Then there was Nick Lichter. His farm was on the, northeast side of 47th and Lichter Road. My grandfather Peter started a farm just west of where the McDonald's is, basically on Lichter Road. And then he eventually went to the corner of Lichter Road and Highway 31 on the east side. And then eventually he expanded that to the west side also. That big barn there on the west side between L and E was his barn. And I'll show you a picture of that being built.
Do you know when 18th Street, County Highway L, when it became Lichter Road and who named it?
I do not know. I know I called the county and see if that can be a subtitle of Lichter Road, but they said because the L stands for Lichter Road, they can't do that. So it's interesting. But well, actually, Lichter Road did not go through between 22nd and 30th until fairly recently. You probably remember where it was just, pretty much a puddle. But I'm not sure when it did. It probably changed that way because 3 Lichters lived on it. Mm-hmm. That pretty much solidified that.
And then, as we get down, you talked about one of your grandfathers. The other one is farmers, pretty much factory workers.
My second grandfather, yeah, he worked at Bain Wagon Works, worked at Bodie Brothers Furniture for a while, and then Simmons. And then my father started at Simmons, and then he stayed there until they closed in 1959, went for the rest of his career then at AMC.
AMC. And your mother then, what did she do?
Well, like everybody in that family, they finished 8th grade.
Okay.
Because that was good enough back then. You learned good things from the nuns. I mean, you could write like perfect, and you learned math very well, learned to read very well. But then, because she had an 8th grade education, she couldn't do as much. But then she went to College of Commerce, as did my dad. And at College of Commerce, she learned shorthand and typing and all that stuff. So she worked a little bit as a secretary, not too much though. She mostly stay-at-home mom. Okay. But it was interesting. And my dad had to quit school. He loved school, okay, in his junior year because he was the oldest in the family and he had to help the family out, financially. But he said he really enjoyed school. He didn't want to quit. And I found out later on, through looking online, he was the vice president of a sophomore class at Kenosha High School. That kind of surprised me. So.
Okay, and then yourself. Your education, you went to school where and learned your college education developed into a career. What was that?
Okay, well, I started at kindergarten at Jefferson School. So this year we did a little tour of Jefferson, brought the kids down to the History Center, and so I showed them what the neighborhood was like when I was there. That's kind of cool. And the Klotzes lived near there also. My great-grandfather, Joseph Klotz, and his wife, they live right across the street on 43rd Street from Jefferson School. Their oldest son lived just west of Jefferson School on 42nd Street. I had a great aunt who lived on 43rd Street at the end of 17th Avenue. There's a little house on a hill there overlooking the park. Well, at that time, that was their farm. Their farm went 3 houses to the west of their house and then down to the river, or to Pike Creek, I should say, all the way there in 43rd Street. And they would have some cows there. They would raise a few crops and so forth. And he also had to work in a factory, okay, because it wasn't enough, just a little hobby farm, I guess. Well, what he did, he would put some milk down in the well in the morning. Well's cold. Come back from his day at the factory and have a special treat because the cream would rise to the top. He had that nice cold cream at the end of the day. Then as far as the rest of my education, well, then I went to Holy Rosary, which is right across the street from my house. I lived on 22nd by 43rd. And I went there 8 years. And most of the kids were Italian, but they were great kids. I thought I was Italian by the time I graduated from there. And many of us then went to St. Joe's. St. Joe's was a pretty good school. It was very big then, 1,600 kids. I was in the first class I had to wear uniforms for boys.
And what year was that?
That was 1962, 63. And so they give us this thing in the mail and it had a picture of a guy with a blue shirt on, black tie, black pants, and black shoes. That's what we had to wear, okay? And they told us we had to go downtown to Geppetto's clothing store, which is where Crystal's is now. And so we had to try on our clothes, and it was very hot. Nobody had air conditioning back then. So we had to go in this little room, and it'd be about 1,000 degrees in there, and you try to put on clothes and everything. And so everything got all sweated up and everything. Well, we're the first ones to have to wear uniforms. The girls did already. Girls also wear uniforms at Holy Rosary. And the hair had to be just so and so forth, and that's kind of interesting also.
Okay.
And then after
St. Joseph High School.
Right. I went to 2 years at the Kenosha Center, University of Wisconsin, and that was where Bradford is now. And when I went there, I wanted to at first major in engineering, but I didn't care for it that much, so I went to chemistry. I kept taking chemistry courses, math courses, and it was a good education there. I was on the fencing team. My wife was also on the fencing team.
Is that how you met?
We met in calculus class, actually. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's pretty cool. And so then I decided to go to Madison. That's what you usually did. 2 years, either Kenosha Center, Racine Center, whatever. Went to Madison or Milwaukee. I went to Madison. I stayed there the 1 year. That's when they had all kinds of riots and everything. And they said they were going to open Parkside for a degree program the next year. So I figured, well, that's a pretty good deal. So it'd be cheaper and I get to graduate there. And so I did.
So was that 1969 you came back?
69 came back. I was the first graduating class in June of 1970. There was 34 of us, I think. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, and continuing on then, you were ready to
I was ready to teach math.
teach math. Why math?
I enjoyed it, and I was good at it. And there's no labs, and there's no big papers and so forth. It's a pretty good thing to major,
So
I
you
think.
get out of chemistry because of the lab work and
Well, the lab work a little bit, yeah.
equations and
See, when you get to the advanced organic chemistry labs, you wait about 3 hours for one little drip to come down. If it doesn't come down, you wait another 3 hours for the next one to come down. So I think math was a lot easier, really.
were you good at it as a child?
Well, I always kind of, there's three things that kind of helped me become a math teacher. One, I enjoyed baseball. I enjoyed statistics. And so the Chicago American would come out on a Sunday, and my dad would buy that paper and also the Milwaukee Journal paper. And I'd look at all the stats and show all the baseball players what they did that week, what their current stats are. And I was fascinated with that. And basically, I eventually taught statistics also at the college level. But then I also enjoyed the 50s cars. Back in the 50s, cars looked different every year. They didn't change the inside very much, they changed a lot on the outside with the fins and so forth. And that geometry kind of, I thought that was pretty neat. And also houses, because the houses, as I walk by them, they're different. I saw some of what I know is now Victorian, Italianate, Greek Revival, and so forth. And I kind of enjoyed seeing the different shapes and sizes and that type of thing. So I did my practice teaching in Racine at Gifford Junior High School. And I signed a contract with Unified. And I got a letter in the mail. And it said, "Greeting." And that was my draft notice. And I got drafted out of the KYF. That's where the draft board was on the second floor there. And a big bus picked us up very, very early in the morning, I remember. And took us up to Milwaukee, made the oath in Milwaukee.
So you sign a contract to teach
Right.
one day. The next day,
Well, soon after.
oh, soon after, okay. So before you got a chance to teach,
Right before I had a chance to teach.
you got your draft notice, went, took your oath.
January of 71.
Okay.
And I got drafted January 29th, 1971. Those kind of dates to remember, you know. And so the bus picked us up very early in the morning, brought us up to Milwaukee, we did the vow and everything. And then we were supposed to go to Mitchell Field, was called then, to ship out to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where our basic was. Well, it was snowing that day. And so, well, okay, we're not going to take you to Milwaukee. They can't handle the snow and everything. So we'll take you down to O'Hare. So the bus went down, and where that one curve was on I-94 there before it gets to Racine County, the bus hit a car. And there's an accident. And so the bus driver, he couldn't continue, went back, and we spent the first night in the Army at the Hotel Wisconsin. So it's interesting. And so there's one sergeant with us. Okay, he gave us all beds and everything, all rooms. Okay, you got to stay here all night. Well, some of the guys, not me, because I just want to stay there. I went out and found the bars. So
One last time.
one last time, yeah.
Okay, so then you did serve, and where did you serve? How did that come about?
Well, I went through Campbell for basic, and then they gave me my AIT Advanced Individual Training, gave my AIT orders to go to Fort Knox for radio school, because I was good with code on my resume. And so I went to radio school. It was a 10-week course. And I went there after 5 weeks. A few of us were good enough in Morse code. And so they said, well, okay, we're going to advance you down to Fort Gordon for radio teletype. So you're typing all the time. And so went there for 11 weeks. And as you're going through one of these AIT schools, they have a manifest there. It tells you where all the people ahead of you are going. And for the first 9 weeks I was there, out of the 11, it said RVN, RVN, that's Republic of Vietnam. Okay, every class, every kid went to Vietnam. The class before me went to either Germany or Panama. That would have been fine. My wife, her husband, or her dad was in the Navy for 20 years, and she was all over the place, but she was born in Panama, so that's would be kind of if we went there. And of course, Germany was my, normal
Homeland. So to
yeah,
speak.
well, I could have seen everything there. But then I went, and the next class then was either Korea or Germany, and I went to Korea. And first night I was in Korea. It was very dark and dreary. So I kind of set the pace for that.
And then how long were you in the service?
I was in the service for another 13 months. Now I would have been in total 2 years, but I got off 3 months early because if you were either in Vietnam or Korea at the time, then they let you go early because they didn't want to retrain you, if you've already been overseas and everything like that. And so, in fact, everyone who was in Vietnam or Korea went out of Fort Lewis, Washington. And so they had kind of two lines. One line was getting all the jungle boots and all the floppy hats and everything. The other line was getting all the cold weather gear for Korea. So I was in that one.
Okay. And then you came out of the service.
I came out October of '72, and I got a job right away because of the fact that I was drafted as a person working at a place. And so they let me have a job then. It was at Jersted Agerholm Junior High School, which is named after 2 World War II veterans who died in World War II. They both are Medal of Honor winners. So that was kind of neat to do that. So I taught there 7 years. And while I was teaching there, I started teaching nights at Gateway Technical School, as it was called. GTI was called that time. I taught there 20 years part-time at night. And then after 7 years at Jersey, I started at Horlick High School and taught there 27 years.
Okay.
And when I was at Horlick, I kind of changed from teaching at Gateway, teaching at Concordia University. So I taught there 20 years part-time.
Okay. And do you have any siblings?
I have one sister, Carol, who died about 9-10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And what was her history, her education, her occupation? What did
She
do?
graduated Bradford 1958. She worked as a clerk, typist. In fact, she's very good at it. For a while down in Fort the naval base down
Great Lakes.
Great Lakes, yeah. She worked in Great Lakes for a few years, and then she started working for the, downtown for a few places. And
And when she married, did they have a different job that they did together?
well, eventually, her husband, Joe Matelski, bought a bar right across from St. Joe's there. And so, in fact, she worked at Social Security for many, many years.
Oh, okay.
I should have mentioned that, yeah.
Okay, so they owned a bar across from St. Joseph High School. When did they own this bar?
They started in '73, and they had it for quite a few years.
And with the drinking age in 1973 in Kenosha County was 18?
I believe so, but my brother-in-law talked to the priest, said, nobody comes in here who goes to St. Joe's.
So he was going to make sure no St.
absolutely,
Joseph
yeah.
kids got into the bar.
Uh-huh.
Did they check IDs or something to find?
They must have, yeah, I guess so.
So what is it that you do today?
Well, I have been volunteering at the History Center for this is my 18th year now, showing around the museum itself. We do all the walking tours, and I did a few things like I helped clean out the old museum on 3rd Avenue, the attic there. I helped get the bricks from the AMC property for us to sell, and I do some research and so forth, and it's fun to work there. I enjoy working with the kids.
Have you always been interested in local history?
Yes, my dad and I always talked about the local history. That and baseball are two things we always talked about. He'd tell me who lived there and who lived there. He'd go through a picture of one of his graduating classes. And I'm kind of doing this now too. See, she's dead, he's still alive, she's dead. So it's that kind of thing. But he talked about, well, he graduated with Ray Barris from St. George and also from, I believe, Washington Junior High School.
And Ray Barris was a longtime pitching coach?
Pitching coach, and also he
the
was a
White Sox?
catcher in the majors. Yeah, very good guy.
Okay. And is there anything else that you occupy your time? Are you still teaching?
I still substitute teach. I still tutor a little bit. I'll be substitute teaching at the Prairie School on Monday again. I've been substitute teaching there since I retired, which I never did, of course. But yeah, I substitute a lot at Horlick then, and also my alma mater, St. Joe's, and a little bit here and there. And I also taught a lot of college yet. I taught at Parkside a little bit at nights.
Okay, so you were always interested in numbers, math, stats, but why education?
Well, it was something to apply it with. You know, I didn't know too much about, you know, some of the other applications of math, but I knew teaching. And I always helped kids at school too with their math. And I figured, well, you know, not too bad at this. So I kind of enjoyed it.
Okay.
It was fulfilling. You have to realize all my great-grandparents lived here, and they had a total of 31 kids, including my grandparents. And so they had many, many kids themselves. And so I have so many relatives. When I went to St. Joe's, I had 6 second cousins there that I didn't even know about. 2 Leucks, 1 Klotz, 2 Lichters, and 1 Thielen. That's pretty cool. In fact, mom and dad would talk about somebody, well, that's your cousin. I can't have so many cousins. I did. A lot of second cousins, especially. Actually, a lot of first cousins, because there's 8 kids in my mom's family and 4 in my dad's. And most of them were around here. And so that was kind of interesting.
Okay, thank you for joining me today.
Okay, can I mention 2 mothers? Okay, one of George Lichter's daughters was Madeline Ewan. She and her husband Henry Ewan owned Ewan's Music Store. That was where Jockey Men's Wear is now downtown, and where Sears was and so forth. Another relative, a Dagenbach, owned that where on 50th Street and 7th Avenue, that Mother Apothecary was. That started out, he built the store, Dagenbach, and it was a cigar manufacturing store. It was one of the bigger manufacturers in Kenosha at one time. And he would sell the cigars to all kinds of different places, bars and so forth. And let's see if I have any, oh yeah, the Godfreyson and Nickel was owned by one of the Thielens.
Okay.
So I'm very proud of my family. I think they're just great people, worked very hard to get where they were. And they're branching out all kinds of different, a lot of teachers and lawyers and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.